So we knew who the culprit was, and just didn't say anything the whole time.
Yeah.
There was one horse murder in 1854 that offered a £10 reward.
She becomes really ill with her intestines and then dies 9 days later.
Some evil disposed person or persons.
Like, that clearly shows that the lawmakers clearly had, like, a lack of compassion.
Most of my crimes are to do with tree-based related crimes.
As I said, it was originally done in front of crowds, where people would rent out their balconies that were nearby for people to go up there and watch it for some morbid reason.
He was also in the area and he couldn't really explain what he was doing, where he was, who he was with, didn't have an alibi. Hello and welcome back to What's the Story? This week we are doing our crime and punishment episode. So we're going to be talking about everything from murder to some light deforestation. I'm going to be talking about a real life unsolved mystery for us to explore.
So I'm going to be talking about a prison calendar and also how there was a lack of like social responsibility in like the early 1900s.
I am the woman who's talking about the light deforestation. I have researched several crimes involving trees, and I will be telling you all about the rewards that people got for information regarding them.
I'll be talking about the murders in County Durham, so the dark stuff, basically.
I'm just going to spend the time talking about Mary Ann Cotton and her, I think it was believed to be around 21 murders, but we don't actually know how many people she killed, because poison was quite difficult to track, because it would all just be blamed on gastric fever, which everyone had.
So, for those who don't know, who is Mary Ann Cotton and why is she so famous here?
Mary Ann Cotton is pretty much one of the most notorious serial killers, one of the first female serial killers, really, who was held nearby Durham Prison. She was born as Mary Ann Robson, and she decided to leave her home at the age of 16 to go and work as a domestic servant. And then she became pregnant to her first husband, whose name was William Marbury. So they decided to travel around the country. She had 5 kids, 4 of them died in infancy. So it's not actually known whether she killed them. Likely not. They probably just died, because you wouldn't get as much for children dying. Infant mortality rates were a lot higher back then. Then January 1865, her husband William was injured at sea, so moved back to Sunderland to rest up his foot until he was then killed from an intestinal disorder, which was poison. So then she then moved to Seaham Harbour and began a relationship with someone named Joseph Nattrass, who was previously engaged to a woman. So 8 out of her 9, so she had 9 children overall by this time. 8 of them have died in childbirth, only 1 of them still left alive. And that last child moved in with her grandmother. And so eventually she leaves Joseph and all that and moves to, still stayed in Sunderland, but she now starts working in infirmary. She starts courting a patient there. And then marries them in around August in 1965, so same year. They then die in October of the next year. So then she then goes and works with someone else named James Robbins, so she's moving around a lot. Then his child then dies of gastrinal fever. He still doesn't suspect anything. She becomes pregnant because he turns to her as a sort of comfort. Then Mary's mother becomes ill, who her child was staying with, and so moves in to stay with her. She becomes really ill with her intestines and then dies 9 days later. And then her eldest child dies, and so he starts to get a bit suspicious, but for some reason at this point, nothing's quite linked together. And then Robinson's 2 older kids died, still doesn't suspect anything until the first child they had together died, and she pretty much got kicked out. And so one of her friends, who seemingly does not put anything together about this, recommends someone, she might just hate them a lot, but she recommends someone called Frederick Cotton to her, and so eventually they get married. So then she immediately insures her husband and the 2 sons, which she did to a previous husband, which was one of the reasons she got kicked out, because he thought it was a bit strange how everyone died after getting insured. That's something. She gave birth to him. How she then figured out that Joseph Nattrass was back in West Auckland, and so started courting with him again, became pregnant with his son, and then both of the kids of the previous one died. Starts getting confusing because she's with lots of people at this time. Then Nattrass dies, really strangely, almost immediately after changing his will to leave everything to Mary Ann Cotton at this point.
Which could mean nothing.
Nothing, you're
meant
right.
nothing, absolutely not, no. Purely such an innocent West Aucklander. She started to slip slightly when she told someone that, and I quote, "He'll go like all the rest," when a child was in the way of her getting married to someone. So she said pretty much everyone else in the Cotton family's died and he'll die as well. Not sure what she was thinking. She made it this far. Maybe she just got too confident. And so then that child she said was going to die. Would you believe it? The child unfortunately dies. So the doctor becomes suspicious, and you need to turn in like a death report thing.
Yeah.
Don't know what it's called.
Death certificate.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's what I'm thinking. Why did I say death report? To get the insurance money they had on them. And so they deny her that until they've held an inquest, and they found arsenic in the child's stomach. And so she's pregnant this time, so they let her have birth to the child and then send her to trial. And she claims the arsenic was from breathing it in from the wallpaper and like the paint and all that. However, multiple people saw her buying arsenic, right? So it doesn't go all too well. It takes the jury about 90 minutes to decide that she's guilty. And on the 24th of March, 1873, she's hung by the veteran hangman William Calcroft at Durham Prison. She struggled for about 3 minutes until dying, so fortunately, it wasn't quick, or unfortunately, depending on your view in the situation. So she was hanging there for about 3 minutes. By this time, most executions had moved indoors, away from the public. So previously, there was issues with like the long rope where people would drop and they wouldn't die, and they'd have to haul them back up again. A whole different story. And so the only person who's really done more murders than her in this kind of area was Dr. Harold Shipman, who was also held in Durham Prison for a while.
I mean, how did nobody do an autopsy before that one kid? That's so many.
She kept moving around a lot, which I feel is the reason.
That's
Because she's
true.
gone from north to staying in the north, travelled around, but everyone's died in different locations. It's mainly when she settled down in West Auckland, which was a much more like close-knit like kind of community at the time for industrialisation and all that.
Yeah.
That word got round quicker. That person died of the same thing as that person, that person, that person, that person. And she said she was going to kill a kid.
Yeah.
So I think it was more so people just weren't really suspicious because she was a nurse working, and so they tend to just be more lenient, or something could come in from the hospital, or except people saw her buying arson. Sorry, not arson, arsenic.
How do you buy arson?
You buy arson. You pay someone. It's good to buy arson. Don't follow this advice.
Yeah, what I just don't understand is why would you want to kill that many people? Like, why would you kill your own child? Like, that's just crazy to me. Yeah.
Many, many people have had successful step marriages. I don't understand why you need to get rid of the kids.
I feel like she probably wasn't all that there, to be honest, to kill 21 people for money. So maybe some sort of Machiavellianism or something, narcissism. Probably not narcissism. She did pretty much say she was going to kill it, so maybe narcissism was involved.
Maybe.
But I feel like she definitely wasn't all there to kill 9 of her kids, 10 of her kids, plus other people's kids who looked up to her as a mother. Yeah.
And several husbands.
And several husbands, yeah.
That friend who recommends Frederick Cotton is either the most oblivious person I've ever met or the best wing person ever. Yeah.
Best wing person for who?
For Marianne Cotton.
Marianne Cotton. Clearly not poor Frederick Cotton. He's
No.
very much not dead.
Okay, I did actually notice the teapot downstairs that she would have used.
It's very kindly on loan to us from Beamish Museum right now.
That's the teapot she would have used to put arsenic in. I keep doing this. She did not burn her victims. I'd like to make this very clear. Well, actually, the arsenic probably's burnt their insides. Probably going to be really painful.
Yeah.
But she would use that as a way of getting the arsenic into them. Not arson. Thank God I'm doing this right. So I've actually got something here about a poem called Trial, Sentence, and Condemnation of Marianne Cotton, the West Auckland Secret Poisoner. She wasn't at West Auckland all the time, but that's, of course, where she was. So I'll just read a part now. The West Auckland poisoner at last has been tried, that she is guilty cannot be denied. Her crimes struck terror all over the land, and deep indignation on every hand. No feelings of pity was in her hard heart, she never has acted a good woman's part. Her dark deeds of murder she'll peril her soul, and her children destroyed for possession of gold. No one can pity, no one can bless Marianne Cotton for her wickedness. The West Auckland poisoner condemned off lie, she murdered her children, and soon she must die. There's a lot more on there, but I don't feel like reading it all.
Makes sense. No, it's a long song, I get it, because I imagine people were very angry and they really wanted to express their frustrations. That's one of the ways that music takes form, and it's really interesting, actually.
Speaking of songs, I believe we've got another song from
Yeah, we
you.
have actually. It's about a case of an old woman who was sent to prison for begging. I'm not going to say it because it is actually quite long, but I just thought that kind of represents how there's a lot of like lack of social responsibility in that time, because if you're sending someone to prison for basically like just on the street asking for money because they're poor, like that clearly shows that the lawmakers clearly had like a lack of compassion. And also it shows how, because they were born into a higher class, they like think they're superior, so like they don't really associate with poor people or don't really care about them in that way.
Could you maybe, I don't know, give us one of the verses or a chorus?
Okay.
I wouldn't make you read out the whole thing.
Okay, so for trying to get a bite and shelter for the night, this poor old soul of 77 years old, though feeble, worn and bent, to prison has been sent by one whose heart must feel cold. That's the chorus. Yeah.
I think it's really quite harsh sending a 77-year-old woman to jail because of that. Clearly this expresses that this wasn't just the opinion of one person, this was several people who thought this was wrong. And yeah.
So obviously we've had a couple of songs there, and I think you've got the Mary Cotton stuff from a book, and also the famous teapot. But I was wondering what kind of sources were you using to kind of get the information?
Well, I mostly looked at wanted posters for non-murder-based crimes, because, you know, we've got to spice it up a little. We can't have we can't have all our crimes be murders, otherwise this wouldn't be a crime and punishment episode, this would be murder episode. But anyway, most of my crimes are to do with tree-based related crimes. So
What's a tree-based crime?
A tree-based crime. So basically, illegally chopping down trees that aren't yours. I know there's one breaking down and destroying small shrubs. There's one here which I found really interesting. John Ost was convicted of cropping and foiling timber belonging to John Yerbury in the night. And he was found guilty, but Mr. Yerbury, upon hearing the guilty verdict, actually indicated that Thomas Hillier, his accomplice, and who was basically left uncharged for the whole thing, was actually the main culprit. And so John Ost ended up being only in prison for a few months in 1806. And I just find that so odd. Like, why would you do that? What
why
motive
would you do
have?
that?
Yeah.
Who wants the shrub? What's the shrub for?
I don't know.
So we knew who the culprit was, and
Yeah.
just didn't say anything the whole time.
Yeah.
Until they got the wrong person. I feel like all that could have been avoided if you just said the right person
Yeah.
from the beginning.
What's going on? I don't understand. There were also quite a few rewards if you... People obviously cared about this because there were rewards if you could get in information about who maybe destroyed the shrubs or cut down ash trees, or there was one very cleverly described cutting down a number of trees, never specified how much. But yeah, cutting down trees carried a reward of 5 guineas if you could provide anything, as did cutting down privately owned ash trees. But if you were breaking down and destroying small shrubs, that could be anywhere from about 5 to 20 guineas.
It's quite a jump.
Yeah,
between a tree and a shrub.
It's all based on different sources I found from different wanted posters for information about these crimes.
I believe you were looking at some wanted posters as well.
Yeah, I found a wanted poster and I was looking at that, and it also had a reward. This one was £100 though, for information on a girl who was only 6 years old, who'd been strangled in 1928. So it's kind of a little bit more sad than the trees, I think. But I also managed to find, so not only the poster, but I also found a newspaper that also had information on her, but unfortunately it was just a little bit after, so it didn't actually know who. We still don't know. I don't know who did it, or if they even found who had murdered her.
Yeah, it wasn't just people who carried rewards for information as well. There was one horse murder in 1854 that offered a £10 reward for anyone who could offer information on how the horse was killed, who killed the horse, and the suspect. Yeah.
A horse murder.
A horse murder.
Any more information, or was it just...
I remember they just stabbed a horse.
They just stabbed in the middle of daylight?
Nope, nighttime. They stabbed
Nighttime.
a horse.
In the middle of the night? Why were they even with the horse in the middle of the night?
I don't know. It was just a wanted poster.
Must it have been like a racehorse or something they didn't like because they kept losing money, or did they just really...
I don't know.
really
I just think it was
horse?
just random man's horse.
Random man's horse. Must
Yeah.
have liked the guy.
So I can read to you what it was actually on the horse murder wanted poster if you would like.
Please do.
Yeah.
Okay. So it says, whereas on Sunday night, the 24th of July, 1854, or early the following morning, some evil-disposed person or persons entered a field belonging to Mrs. P. Pickering at Milne Houses and maliciously stabbed a horse.
And whereas late on Sunday night, the 30th of July, or early the following morning, the same person or persons or others entered the stable of the said Mrs. B. Pickering and maliciously stabbed the same horse in the chest. A reward of £10 is hereby offered by Mrs. Pickering to any person giving information that will lead to the conviction of the offender or offenders.
Get a lot more reward money for a horse than a bush.
I feel sorry for that poor horse.
Yeah,
No.
it's horrible.
That's a horrible thing. It is just a horse. What exactly did it do to whoever committed
Why
this?
did they do it twice? It was so determined.
It's all a mystery because unfortunately this is the only thing we've managed to find on it. But it is a great example of the completely over-the-top language that people used for these posters.
Speaking of wanted posters, I have a wanted poster here from a murder in Spennymoor in 1924, and this was actually never solved, but there is a major suspect. So I thought if you could excuse us going true crime for a second, it might be cool if we could talk about it and see if we think he did it or not. So I'll read the wanted poster out. Murder at Spennymoor, £50 reward. And it says that at 2:54, I wrote it down again. At 2:45 a.m. on Sunday the 13th of January, 1924, Philip Nash G., a cobbler, was found dead in his shop with head trauma. They found 3/6 in silver near his body, and a metal watch was completely missing from the scene. They arrested a Thomas McGowan, but witnesses couldn't identify him, and he was eventually released for lack of evidence. The evidence in question was that McGowan was wearing blood-stained clothes at the time after the murder, but he claims that he slammed his finger in the door, and it was just bleeding everywhere, and it got all over his clothes. He was also in the area, and he couldn't really explain what he was doing, where he was, who he was with, didn't have an alibi. The crime itself was thought to be a robbery because of the money on the floor, and he ended up being found by his neighbour, who noticed the open door the next morning. Now, interestingly, a McGann, who it's thought was probably a fake name of McGowan, but we don't really know what the deal was. He bought clothes at a pawn shop, then went to his hotel, slept in the clothes, and didn't seem to wash them. He then asked for a parcel and picked it up later, which the police thought could have maybe been his still wet coat after he cleaned it. A man matching his description was also found asking for a rag to bandage his finger, though, so maybe he did just hurt his finger, and that was what that was. The defense also argued that they should have questioned the victim's siblings who worked with him and didn't check on him. They didn't notice the door was left open, they didn't notice he didn't come home, and the defense thought that was quite suspicious. And some of the witnesses and other suspects, you have Cyril Mason, who was a deaf beggar who was seen in the vicinity, but he managed to account for his movements during the time somebody else had seen him, so he was completely dismissed. Some of the witnesses, you have Martha Hines, who saw a man running away from the scene and rubbing his hands together for some reason while she was buying some sweets next door. John Dinning met the suspect as a soldier in 1919, and he'd been out for drinks for him that very night. And he said that he would be going to Spennymoor and said that he will have some money tonight, suppose some bugger goes under. Which isn't exactly, it's a bit suspicious. There was also Albert Stoker, who also saw McGowan and said that he looked dirty and in need of a wash, but that was pretty normal for him, and he actually looked better than normal, which doesn't seem particularly relevant. I think he just felt like being mean. But eventually the suspect was released because there was just no real evidence tied to this case other than the bloody clothes, which he'd explained with the bloody finger. But when he was in custody, he said, "You cannot prove it against me, it's only suspicion. There was nobody in the shop after 7, nobody saw me do it," and it's noted that he said, "me," like that. "You haven't found any instrument, it's only suspicion against me, I am happy and content." And then he ended up being released. Which is all pulled from the files from the case. So what do you think? Do you think he did it? Or do you
Bloody
think...
finger is where I get, I cut my finger yesterday and it didn't bleed that bad. Right.
He didn't cut it. I think he said he slammed it in a door, which I guess could be quite nasty. Like,
I've
you
seen
could
lots
break
of
a finger,
fingers.
but
Don't question me on this, but I have seen things slammed in doors.
Yeah.
Car doors, regular doors. Like, the nail bruises, because it's just blood flow. But then, even if you cut a finger, like, if you got blood all over you, like, when you said bloody clothes, you reckon it was just like his sleeve, maybe his shirt? Like, if it was down to his shoes, he's... Like,
it didn't elaborate. It just said
Right.
blood stained. So
I would like to add that I bruised my finger between two bowling balls when I was young.
that's
And it
impressive.
It didn't bleed at all. So I would like to call rubbish on that. Yeah.
There's the siblings as well. Why didn't they notice that he never came home? Why didn't they go and check? The door was wide open when the neighbour found him.
Why was the neighbour up at 2:45 a.m.?
No, it was the next morning, I should have
Oh, I
said.
see.
But
Who found him first?
it was the neighbour, George Wilson. He opened the door the next morning and just found him in the middle of his shop.
It says at 2:45 a.m.
That was when he was killed.
Oh, they think he was killed at 2:45
I think he was killed at
a.m. and he
2:45
was
a.m. I
discovered
don't know
in
how
his
they
van.
worked that out, but 2:45
Okay.
a.m.
Yeah.
Did he have any relation to the man?
No, it's believed that it was probably for money because they
Right,
had found
okay.
money next to the body and he was in the shop, so he's probably trying to nick from the till. But
Right, okay.
who knows?
But did he leave the money?
There was some money on the
Okay.
floor, so I don't actually remember if any was missing. I didn't write it down. It seems like something I should have written down. I think his weird phrasing of his little speech when he was in custody as well is very weird. Like, nobody saw me do it. Like, okay, what did you see then? Who did you see do it? What do you mean nobody saw you do it?
Yeah.
It's just bizarre to me. But yeah.
I mean, if he was a cobbler, then that might explain why his siblings didn't think he was waiting for him to come back. He might have just been staying. Cobblers do the bottom of shoes, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like he'd work with metal and all that, so that he was probably just thinking he was staying back late to finish it or had fallen
Yeah.
asleep in the workshop or something.
Possibly.
I think it was a neighbour. He's
He was
giving me
a
wins.
neighbour.
Yeah.
I think, if I remember right, I think he was out for market with his wife when they came across the door the next morning, which, yeah.
The next day, though, he was out the market next day. Nothing about the one.
The wife probably would have backed him up though. If he had a wife at this point in time, he was probably in bed with the wife. So the wife could probably back him up.
Probably.
They both killed him.
Whoa.
Probably never really know what happened, unfortunately.
Yeah, so an interesting thing we found in the archives was a prison calendar of several prisoners held in Carlisle prison. And then we also found, so we found a link between one of the mugshots of Henry George, and he was also in the prison calendar.
So we've had a lot of crime. What about some punishment?
Right. So obviously, punishment was a consequence of crime. We all know that. But punishment could also be a consequence of just general misbehaviour, which is why when I looked into the archives, I brought out a punishment book from about 1901 to 1912, I remember, from Bishop Barrington CE School, which was a secondary school, so around the maybe 11 to 16 age range. So if you've ever been to secondary school, you know those boys can get a little bit rowdy, maybe.
offense,
Just
Jack.
between you and me.
I see this is going.
Except you. You're
Thank
fine. Yeah. You're very funny, actually. But yeah, I looked into just how many strikes they would receive, different teachers, what they would do, the general misbehaviour, quite a lot of laziness, bad work, bit misbehaving when the teacher wasn't there.
So what kind of punishments were there?
More was all just strikes with the cane, the
Classic.
the usual. Yeah, and I think that actually continued into quite late on. Certainly in the 1980s, I think. So corporal punishment was continued on even from like the Victorian era. Was still continued on until 1986. So it was quite a long-standing thing. I definitely don't think it was a good thing. No, because people are beginning to realise that violence is not the best way to deal with rowdy children. So I know in the modern day we have punishments like detentions and stuff. Maybe writing up a piece of work again or something, or the dreaded one, going to see the teacher. There's nothing like opening your work from last week and see me in red at the side. The absolute horror. But I do think I do think punishment has changed for the better, because it allows us to learn from our actions maybe in a way that doesn't traumatise and harm us. Did you guys ever receive any other different sort of punishments from like detentions or writing lines? Is that just
No,
the
I was a
standard?
goody two-shoes. I never got one detention, so...
Oh, you like you're saying.
Okay, so we've had some school punishments. Now how about some of the worst punishments you could get, Jack?
So, primarily for Durham Prison by the time it was built, things like beheading weren't really used anymore, and it was more so, just the regular hanging. As I said, it was originally done in front of crowds, where people would rent out their balconies that were nearby for people to go up there and watch it for some morbid reason. But, it's happened throughout all of history. There's always been horrific executions in the area and just anywhere in general, like, having a horse tied to each limb and having them all run different directions, which would just split you, which would be absolutely horrific, but people paid to watch it. Classic hung, drawn and quartered, where you'd be hung, drawn, quartered, makes a lot of sense. But primarily here it was always just hanging. There's a famous instance actually, where, I think I mentioned it earlier, where someone's hanging failed and they had to pull him back up again. I think the name was James Burton, if I'm saying that right, in 1883. And so he killed his ex-wife on a railway embankment. And so when they went to hang him, the slack of the rope caught under his elbow, so it just swung back and forth instead of snapping his neck. So they had to pull him back up. And it was reported he kept saying, like, "Oh Lord, have mercy on my soul." But they dropped him again, and they messed up again, so the rock kept swinging, but his neck did actually break on instant this time.
That doesn't sound pleasant.
But I feel like if it doesn't work the first time, they should have just come up with a different idea or
Third
something.
time's the charm.
Yeah.
It's not fourth time, though. Always third time.
That's true.
There was actually someone else who was housed there, their case is more famous than them, to be honest. They were called the Gateshead Ripper. So they killed someone, I think their name was like Jane Beetle or something. So they killed them in a similar way to how Jack the Ripper was down in Whitechapel. And also before, as he moved up north, he started moving. And so Scotland Yard actually came up to the area to investigate. And they determined the cuts on the neck just weren't quite the same, so they left again. And it's kind of similar to the Spennymoor murder with blood on the suit. He'd got this, his suit was covered in the blood of the person, and so he'd gone and exchanged it for a second-hand suit, they'd swapped clothes. So this random person's took this man's bloody clothes and just given him a fresh one, thought nothing of it.
Well, I also had some stories of some murders as well. The first one was quite an early one, 1798, and there was this girl called Mary Nicholson, and she was an orphan, and so she was after being in the orphanage, she was then taken as a servant by a man called John Atkinson, and the girl wasn't very happy. She wasn't treated very well, and so she decided to try. It's believed that she tried to poison the people in the house, which included her master and his mother, Elizabeth. So it's thought that she bought some arsenic, like Marianne Cotton, and it was made into a cake, and the family ate the cake. But unfortunately, John, who she'd been intending to just murder John, but he hadn't felt hungry, so the rest of the people, not wanting to waste it, ate it, and they fell sick. And although most of them recovered, Elizabeth didn't, and she ended up dying. And it was found, Mary Nicholson was found guilty of it, and she was hanged. But like Jack was saying earlier, the first hanging didn't work, and she had to be hung a second time, which would definitely not have been very nice.
The last hanging in mainland UK was 1964, and it was suspended in most of the UK in 1965, except for Ireland, Northern Ireland, which was about 10 years later. But it wasn't actually abolished until 1998, so up until that point you could still be executed for treason, but nobody ever was, so it was fine. But the last hanging in Durham was on the 24th of December 1952, and it was Herbert Appleby, who was convicted of murder of John Thomas. He was drunk and he thought John Thomas was making an advance on his girlfriend, so he picked up a knife and stabbed him. And he ended up just going straight down to the police station and turning himself in. and he was almost declared insane through alcohol, but ended up being convicted of willful murder and was executed.
I also found information on a second murder in a newspaper. So this one was about so the man who's thought to have committed the murder was called John Stevenson Bainbridge, and it is thought that he killed the 75-year-old Mr. Edward Frederick Herdman. But there was a lot of contesting about whether he'd actually done it and whether he'd actually had enough time to have committed the murder. It was thought that he'd killed him for money because John was found with a £5 note, and it was thought that he'd stolen it off Mr. Edward. In the end, Bainbridge was found guilty of it, and he was hung. And this was in 1935. But on the morning that he was hung, a woman called Mrs. Violet van der Elst, wealthy woman from London, came up to protest against. She was protesting around the country about capital punishment. She believed that it was wrong to be killing people because they'd killed. So she protested outside where they were killing him because it wasn't a public execution. He was done it. It was private, and she didn't believe in killing people just because they'd killed someone else. She thought it was wrong and that they should have a prison sentence instead, which I thought was quite interesting, that there were people who didn't believe it, because back then when it was like, because I can't believe that it lasted so long, like these punishments, just killing people, it really surprised me. I didn't, so I thought that was quite interesting.
It is interesting, considering I think she had a view that was very atypical for the time.
Yeah.
That was. Yeah.
So I've also got a quote from Miss Violet van der Elst about her, about her protests against punishment, like hanging people against murder. It cannot be nice for women like me to stand outside the galls every time a man is hanged. You know he is being murdered. He may have done wrong. He may have committed murder, but he is being murdered too. Two wrongs never make a right. This is a human being, not an animal. If one dog kills another, you would not kill that dog. I say that it is not right to kill another man. Give him a life sentence, 25 or 30 years. Don't you think that it's enough to ask any human being? If anyone asks for more than that, he is not human. He is little better than a beast. It is a cowardly thing to kill a man, the greatest crime one can commit.
I gotta say, she's makes some good points there.
She seems very cool.
Yeah, she does seem very cool.
I feel like at this point the episode should just be titled Murder and the Occasional Deforestation.
I agree, let's make that the title.
Okay, so we have a game. So you guys have to guess how many strikes you'd get for doing something bad in 1921 if you were at school. So how many strikes would you get if you did very bad work?
This is very bad, not just bad, very bad.
Yeah. This is an open one, I see here.
I'll go first and I'll guess 4 strikes maybe.
Okay.
Maybe 5? I think the qualifier of very bad has me pushing it up.
I did the research for this, so I know the answer, so I'm going to step out of this one.
Okay, I'm going to say 3.
You're actually right, it was 3.
Oh, okay.
So,
Can't be that bad.
And then for smoking, what do you guys reckon?
I feel like that's more, right?
Yeah, definitely.
I feel like that'll still be similar. I mean, nowadays it's probably worse than it is then.
I don't know, they really didn't like when kids
I know
smoked.
they didn't like when kids smoked, but I feel like 4 or 3 maybe. I'm going to stick with 4. It's so far hasn't done me any favours, but
I think 4 sounds fair, to be honest. I think I'm going to go 4. Well, not fair, but 4 sounds about right.
I'm going to say 5.
5?
Yeah.
I remember this one as well.
Okay, well it was actually 6. But
Yeah.
that's the highest amount of strikes you could get. Though.
That is, yeah.
Yeah.
I was looking through trying to find higher. You never got higher than 6 for smoking. Yeah.
Yeah, and then what about for trespassing?
Trespassing.
See, I don't remember this one. But
3 maybe.
I agree, 3.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll say 2.
I feel like it depends on like the context. I think like maybe 4. I don't know.
I mean, it was actually true. Two, sorry.
I feel like trespassing in certain places are different to trespassing in others. Like, that's obviously,
Yeah.
but you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think, if I remember correctly, there was quite a lot of crimes related with the local shop, so it was probably a trespassing on the local shop.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
What about for swearing?
Swear.
It's not like a bar of soap associated with that usually.
I'm going to say 3, I think.
Yeah, I think probably 3.
I'll go with 2.
I think it was 4, personally. But
Yeah, it was actually 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is just cheating. I'm cheating.
And then also making a drawing book. How many strokes?
I don't remember this one, surprisingly. I don't even have an inkling about it.
That can't be that bad.
Yeah. I'd say probably 2.
Yeah, 2.
I'm going 3.
Just do
3 has failed me every time. It's still, eventually, one day it'll work.
One day.
4th time is now the charm. Go on.
Well, it actually is 3. But yeah, that's about like pretty much all of them.
Some surprising ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. What confused me most was probably the 6 strikes for smoking, considering it was the 1900s, so maybe we were becoming a little bit more familiar with it, but still, I think the beliefs were still there that it was okay for you. Yeah. Anyway, thank you for joining us once again for this episode of What's the Story. We hope you've enjoyed it as much as we have, and we hope we haven't left too much of a bad taste in your mouths with all the murder, drama, and crime. Anyway, we will see you all next time. Goodbye.